So this Phoenix is so, the desert Phoenix is so abundant with like this very strange physics, because it's a very dry physics on a geographic level. It's amazing. So you take all the very specificness of no moisture and you make it to where like you're interacting on a physical, on like a local, like a physical level, the molecular effect of no moisture. It's like you're interacting with another now a person size no moisture effect. It's just strange. Like at one of these at the canal, this basketball, I don't even think the basketball is spinning. It's going over a little, it's creating a little waterfall, which is a sheet of water going over a fall, and it's like only a foot. And but on the water that meets it from on the other side of the fall is this lingered water that it's like so the falling water on one side goes down and it pools on the other side of the water. It's like fluid dynamics is very it's a distinct thing all its own. So like drawing water down, which is like tending to move north. Let's say it's moving north. One's moving north. That means on the other side of the fall, it's still moving north. But it's like that fall creates a barrier of water now moving down. And so on one side, the falling water is trapping the face of this basketball, which has air in it, right? So it's a sphere, leather sphere, amidst falling water or interacting with moving water. It's so fucking interesting. The face of the basketball is being sucked there, in place in the middle of like the fall. So it's like at the edge of the fall, it's stuck there like a log jutting out. And the face of the basketball on one side is being sucked there by the stronger force moving down, the water moving down, coming from farther farther down south, moving north. All the water is moving north, but like at a different rate from the south. That's creating the thing that keeps the basketball stationary against this falling water. The basketball is light, is the buoyancy, where the pooled water above the lower moving water, because like the fall makes a vacuum effect of a plane of water, like so it's interpolating. These planes of water are interpolating, they're colliding. And what the effect is, on the other side of the fall, there's the top pooling water, which is just kind of, just like buoyant stuff, rises to the top of that surface, and then it gets trapped against the water. So the water, it's like pooled at the top. That eventually it collides with the topper part of the falling water, and then that stuff drags under it, and then it doesn't all just move downstream. It's not that quick of a current. That's what if it's a quicker current, more water is being moved at any given time. The slower the current, if it was a harder moving current with more water, that pooling thing wouldn't be there. It'd just be like you would hardly see the fall of the water. So like this basketball it's perfectly sucked to like the vertical edge of the moving water, because the water moving down on one side of it is pinning it there, because it's just lingering on top of the pooling water, the basketball, and it's going to go where it's the lightest thing in the situation, so it's going to be it's most vulnerable onto any physical imposition based on the moving water. So it does what the water makes it. So like it goes to the very edge because it's the lightest, and it, by touching the other side of the falling water, it gets stuck there. It gets sucked there. It's pressed there. This moving fluid creates an epoxy that has physical ramification like an appendage of like the jet of the water of the barrier that creates the falling water. That water has to fall over. This basketball, so it's like on one side it's being stuck there. At first it was free floating, just kind of because it's the lightest thing at that vortex that the water being made in the water. So it's one imposition about it is that it's just loitering above the water, and it's not being it's being drawn towards what is then the collision of the two water planes caused by gravity and elevation. It's just loitering there. That's because it's buoyant. It's the lightest thing here. I mean, among the situation. So that thing, the first imposition is that it is going to be at the will of this water underneath it, and that it's at its, I would say, like 7/13 height is how that buoyant ball is bouncing. I mean, is loitering on the water. It's being so like it can keep in different situations with different pressures on the different current speed and the inflatedness of the ball, it might bounce against the wall a couple times, and on the cement's edge, it was in the middle, so that's where the most force is going. You got to figure the most vortexing force against that basketball. It happens to go there, so now it rests there. It's stuck there now like a leech on a on a flesh body. That water becomes a pulp or a flesh-like thing. It's like a more physical application of that same principle would be molten lava. It's just a thicker, but it might actually be thinner than in its usage. You could hold it. It might sift through your hands like finer oil than water. I don't know. Or it might be thick like viscous honey if you just heat it. I wouldn't know. Those things are discernible from like a chemistry standpoint. That's just I'm just talking about the same thing. So that basketball, it was the strangest phenomenon. But it's you can see how the physics did it, but you just wouldn't have necessarily anticipated the fluid, the friction, the binding effect of mass and friction together. When you're moving in a car, you you have to station yourself down, because if you get into collision, then you're going to go through the windshield. But if you're not pinned down, you're still that thing is moving. You're a part of its organs, but you're connected as one thing. What happens to the car happens to you in all ramification. That basketball against the plane of the water falling, it's part of the cement there. And until the current changes of the water, it will stay that way. And I'm thinking that might be how deep galactic travel might eventually be accomplished, is the way that light, let's say you see a star way out there, a close star, man shoots a laser at it. That laser is going to be back, or it's going to be consistently at that thing in a couple of years. If it's any star, the closest star is going to take a couple of years for that laser to get there. That laser is traveling as a saber of light through space. It latches onto a star. Now there's a connection there. It's like an astronomical application of quantum physics, which is we're all constantly touching, and you can never get your fingers to actually be touching. You can, to human perception, it looks like they're touching, they're squeezing it at each other, but there's still a fine atomic layer that is just turning. As I do this with my fingers, so you might, the thing that eventually achieves galactic travel, it might actually move the universe. You're not moving at all. You're stationary, and you're moving the universe because you're latching onto that star with your laser. Now you have this tether, and think of 4 suction cups, northwest, east, and south, that are a riveting laser as it moves. The light of a laser riveting as it moves. So on one level, you got to think like the celestial equator. North and south suction cups are stationary, holding you to that star. You reach out like you reach out like this. The star is right here. The star is right here. I'm latched onto it. Now it and me are transferring each other. I'm grabbing it like this, so now my arm's like this, and I'm traveling, and it pulls me there. And I pull myself, and now I'm there. In a moment, like it's like right when you establish that laser, you have that tether. Then it's just a pivoting. The north and south cups, they're holding you there, and you're pivoting around them. So the north and west, the north and south, they're keeping you stationed there, and east and west it's like another U pulling it's pulling with one end, and then it shifts its motion and drags itself, pulls itself. But hard to you is now at that star. Hard to you, then you can't be the two things unless you rip yourself. You pull like the first thing that connects. Like the last thing that you're just a transfer motion. It's a swivel. So you won't be moving through space with like jet rocket fuel. Or like fuel-powered rockets, which merely cause a big a harness explosion, like in a cylinder. The geometry is what is causing you to move. Like it's just a very specific. You took a bottle rocket, or like just like a firecracker, a black cat, and that boom that is. If it could hover in the air, it would be 360 degrees by 360 degrees in all outward from the center of that explosion. What a rocket does, it has shielded plates which can withstand that heat, and it catches the heat and goes in the direction that it's pushed off to. That's how a rocket works. The way that galactic travel might work, you are establishing it with light, and then you pull yourself with that light and drag yourself, like the last part of you gets there after the first part of you, but you were the one thing the whole time. But people have an up and a down, a left and a right, back and a front. Like, so does light. Like, I bet that's how they end up achieving it. It's all like Spider-Man on his web. He hooks up to it, and then he pulls himself, and like anything that he's got, lashed to his foot, he's using his leg to kick it with him. To make sure it doesn't get stuck there. Otherwise, what's connected to his foot stays here. Like it would be just when you're ripping a package for a candy bar. Like, I bet that's how they do it. It was because of that basketball on the moving water. So, like, I think of these. Like, then I'm thinking of underwater trenches where that exact phenomenon's going on. Like, instead of a basketball, though, with the leather, think of the pressure from the that's pushing on but make it like a professional football stadium, like of oxygen that is being pressed there because it was there to be pressed upon. The physics made it be there, and so like. If you hit that with a rock will bounce off of that, like under the sea. That pressure of that bubble that's being held there as though it were like a chasm of water. Like, you put a cup upside down in the pool, like it traps that in there. That just like at the bottom, there's trenches that are constantly breaking down and remaking continental material. So all things like your skin, it develops from underneath and it pushes everything up. That's what a scab is. It closes off the thing and then it's working underneath and it pushes the thing up, and now it's a scab ready to pull off. That's exactly how the Earth works. It's making the geothermic combustion of the mantle. It's like being fed because of buoyancy. So it's not like the heat is there and it's drawing in the mantle and cooks it. The mantle needs to go somewhere. The mountain needs to go somewhere, so it drifts out or it drifts up. So it's like that like stadium-sized pocket of air, which is pressed there because think of a continental shelf underneath, or like a big wide, like the size of like the Grand Canyon, but underwater it still moves like based on temperature and pressure. So like Leviathan and big huge reptiles of the sea of the like the ancient Pangean Sea, pre-Pangean Sea, they like these big beasts. That's what zoology does. It impacts its geology, and it's called ecology. Like you'll find that every species within a given ecology has a role. That doesn't just find food for itself. Food is there because an influence is invited, if not necessitated. So, like the size of the Grand Canyon, that water moving over that streaming underwater, it's just like a barrier that's like your sinew. The top layer of sinew is under, like when you get it, if you're making a chicken breast at your house, layered in sinew, like in between it is like a netting. It's like a tougher, fleshier netting. The earth is a body. It does the exact same thing. So, and that's caused in the moment by like the fluid dynamics of whatever material is presently moving. That is water in temperature, like salt water. Man will eventually build a bunch of greenhouses and mulch the deserts on like a grand, immense industrial scale, and there might not be any. You're taking sunlight. Nothing is created or lost to process. You're just transferring that sunlight, that heat, and you're locking it in and making a drop of water with it. The heat is being held by the ionic bonds, which hold the thing together under this constituency known as H2O, water. It's like you will create water. Like they shall beat their swords into plowshares. Their swords, like their anger at Jesus, and they'll start doing what he says to the agriculture and the land because he obviously understands it. And that's a good thing to end that way. So me and Jesus, no, so shut up. But I bet that's how they space travel. So like so let's say a big independent satellite, man-made synthetic satellite, the size of Montana, has this big laser beam tracked, and now it shoots this fucking thing out like a torpedo. And once it connects on, now it is the line and the Montana-sized spacecraft. It uses that beam. It pulls itself with that beam. So it's collapsing the space. It doesn't move through it. It moves the universe around it. It is temporarily changing the space between you and that star. By sucking you there, you're compressing the two ends. You're compressing the two ends from like here. You hooked onto it here like this, and as you travel through it like this, the space between it compresses, and then the bubble, you intentionally cut the end of the bubble, and now you're at that distinct place, which took years for that laser to go hook onto. And like the second it hooked on, you just say, okay, well, we're ready to go. Hit the switch, and boom, it's like you lock yourself in, because anything, like there's probably quantum material of you that if you're not properly stationed in is going to be like a trail or something, and a couple people will have to wear that mistake in like immense astro-quantum property until like they figure out what happened, however long later, and that thing has become an angry molten god of whatever physics that is now named after him. So, but I bet that's how they do it. So like that might create God, who might start out as Satan. He's God. I mean, so Satan, like, until man is there to be compassionate, there is no, like, the compassionate God is the same thing that he that loves kittens puts snakes in the grass. He did it to help both of them, to where one needs never to then fear and one needs never to kill eventually. Like, that's the ways of God. But until there is a thing to transfer the intuition and intention and control mechanisms, like the reverberary ramification controls of the effect of the process that is now you can't go back and undo what you just did. It's just the process that is in the midst now. Like, until something is there, like, God can't hand off the baton if nothing's there. So he's got to be there first and then hand himself the baton and triangulate it to, like, you to hold, like, and then a million human lives over 10 billion years are like the spirits are like, they're holding God for God, a bunch of like ants holding God for God as God transfers God to God, not laterally but like longitudinally in concept. It's a strange thing. Light is like it's a hair strand, it's a spiraling hair strand. So that strand has tubular layers, like your spaghetti. It has to cook in boiling water for 10 minutes because it's got to cook the middle without closing itself off to the middle by the heat of around the surface or the top of it. So it means to make the middle soft. Like, light is like that. The first thing that as light travels, it travels by the spectrum of visible light. The composition, the visible light is the eighth, but it's like it doesn't need to be there. We can be able to see it because we have this advanced optic known as the human eye. Like, it is a composition of all the 7 radiations, and it's like, because the 7 radiations, the machine's up and churning, and something is there. There's an eighth, which is only the sum of its parts, but it's still the extra thing because it doesn't need to be there. Like, that's inconsequential until the thing can so master all radiation around it to make the visible light the causality factor that makes you be able to warp gamma rays and infrared. Like, infrared's used to do that, which is like just above quantum level. So it's a rich, and every mechanism and particle and heat and pressure is connected to all those factors of everything else. Like, every